And we're live.
Hello. What's going on, y'all happy people? This is your host, Q. Welcome to Out of the Darkness. I am here with the champion, newly minted Jeremy Munson. You all know him. He's been a friend of the show and has been here a few times. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence again. And you all know Soder McSoder. How you doing there, buddy?
I am super tired tonight, so I might fall asleep during the show.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time.
It would not be the first time. Won't be the last, but hopefully won't be the next time.
Okay, so I gotta know, you do wash that shirt, don't you?
I do, yes.
Okay, all right, because you've been wearing that shirt for like 4 months in a row. But it is
washed.
It is looking looser on you. You've been dropping some weight, so congratulations.
So, I need to drink more beer then.
Well, I mean, yeah, that probably won't help your goals, but yeah, no, it's fantastic to have you with us, Jeremy. We weren't sure if we were going to be necessarily calling you Representative Munson anymore, or just Jeremy, but I think I'm not going to stop calling you Mr. Representative. It's exciting.
Well, yeah, it was a good night last night, and you don't have to call me Representative. You can always call me Jeremy.
Man, it's a title well earned. So yeah, we'll stay on the topic and stay with it, man. But you know, that's the thing that concerned me, though. Well, let me ask you, because you're on the inside, I'm just on the outside looking in, right? One of the concerns that I have is it seems as though, do the Democrats have as much infighting as we do as conservatives?
I think especially in the last 4 or 5 years, where a large portion of the Democrats have become so extreme,
Right.
Especially, they've created almost their own, group within the DFL House caucus that I think there was about 11 or 12 of them that forced a lot of the decisions of the caucus to drag everybody further left.
Right.
And, I think there's some infighting within their caucus, within the Democratic Party. And certainly what we saw with Ilhan Omar and her primary opponent, and all the money that was spent in that race. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are trying to decide what the direction of their party should be. So I think it happens on both sides.
I'm so glad you won your primary, because otherwise I was going to jump out of my basement window. After I saw that Ilhan had won, it made me sick to my stomach. I was really hoping that we had moved past that embarrassment. But do you think that her Republican challenger will have any success in that district, or do you feel that district is far too left?
I think that the Republican brand in Minneapolis has been so tarnished by all the negative campaigns and stuff that people see on TV. I think it's difficult, definitely an uphill battle, but he's raised millions of dollars, and hopefully he can start to rebrand the Republican Party, as whether it's the Growth and Opportunity Party or the Party of Law and Order. I think would speak really well in Minneapolis right now with all the unrest that's going on and all the crime. I think if we ever had an opportunity in this year, under this civil unrest and against Ilhan Omar, I think that's our best opportunity we've seen in maybe even decades.
I mean, do you feel that is the way that we move forward, especially now, that we brand that party as the party of Ilhan Omar, the party of the squad, and that ideology? I mean, because it's not even close, right? I mean, this isn't your grandparents' Democratic Party anymore, right?
Right.
My grandfather was a conservative Democrat. He was a union guy. He worked in the union building, for Reynolds Aluminum for, what was it, 45 years. Never missed a day of work, right?
Wow.
And so very conservative man, very principled man, but a Democrat nonetheless. And I feel like there's so many people out there who are still of that ilk. They consider themselves to be Democrat, but they're not aware of how far left the party has moved, right? So how do we? Because I mean that's something that Soder and I are going to be very influential and hopefully and very deliberate about is over this next 82, 86 days, whatever it is making sure that we help to educate people on what true conservatism is, right? And how we help to educate people that this isn't your grandfather's DFL. This isn't your grandfather's Democrat Party. But I feel that after looking at the situation with you, I feel that the Republican Party has been more of a stumbling block to itself than even what the Democrats have been. Is that fair to say?
I think that I think every situation is unique. So I don't know if I agree with that. We have bigger problems on our side.
No.
No,
I'm not.
yeah.
I'm not saying that. Okay, so let me clarify. I feel that the damage that we do to each other hits harder than the damage that's being brought from the other side to us. I feel that the infighting is more dangerous to the future of conservatism than the slings and arrows coming from the other side. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, and I would say that traditionally Republicans have had more. We seem to be more opinionated on our side versus on the Democratic side. They seem to really fall in line with accepting whatever the top-down mandate is on what their marching orders are for the fall, and
Sure.
they are more organized and they come out and win. And we're too busy fighting about specifics of issues and fighting for individualism and that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Democrats this fall with Ilhan. I mean, you kind of brought up an interesting uh, point about talking to people about what the DFL means. Your Rep Miller and I, Tim Miller and I, and a couple of others started the RFL, a couple of years ago, right? We remember that when we copied the logo very similar to the DFL, and we went around
fantastic.
and yeah, we were marketing because a lot of people on the Democratic side and the DFL side are afraid of the word Republican. So, we could soft sell it to them as an RFL and basically talk to them about how Republicans are actually there about jobs. Republicans are supporting farmers and, the DFL doesn't. And in trying to bring people in who are disenfranchised, having people take a step back and look at their party again and assess what the priorities are and choose. You're never going to agree 100% with your party, but maybe we can get you to support 80% of a position of a party, and if they sit back and they look at what the Democrats believe in and what the Republicans believe in, it's time to reevaluate which party you belong in, and that's how we expand our tent and bring more people and get more people involved.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about yourself. As far as, I mean, you've been on the show before. I don't feel like we've really, at one time we delved into it a little bit. I want to say back last July when you came on the first time. But
Okay.
What is your message? I mean, who is Jeremy Munson? What do you stand for?
I got involved in politics because government kind of started poking around in my life with messing around with healthcare, and but you get this a lot where people become engaged in politics because government touches them in a good way or a bad way, And I like to say that people that are touched in a good way by government, they're helped through different programs, they tend to become a Democrat. And when people are touched by government in a bad way, they become a Republican. And the government has touched a lot of people this year in a really bad way, whether it's shutting their businesses down, messing with their health care, making healthcare decisions for them, or where they're not normally engaged in politics. They're going to want to get involved, and we want to show them that our party is welcoming and will help them, fight back, push back on government because they're being touched in a bad way.
That's powerful. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why this show came to be was because I felt that I hate using the word education because that implies a certain level of ignorance on someone's part, and that's not my heart. That's not what I mean. But I feel that there was a lot of misinformation out there about what conservatism looked like and what true conservatism was. And understanding that true conservatism is a friend of the family, is a friend of family values, a friend of patriotism as well, right? And so I was seeing, at first I was looking at it from a black standpoint, right? I was like, man, why is it that you have this group of people that look like me, black people, and I'm just going to be really raw with you, Jeremy. I don't have the patience to make this pretty, but why is it that you have a group of people that look like me that are very, very conservative socially, and pretty fiscally conservative as well, voting against their own self-interest? How do you have these people who believe in who go to church every Sunday, who believe in the strength of family, believe in family, believe in service to others, and those things that really make us who we are as conservatives, including a lot of them believe in limited government. How do they continue to vote against their own self-interest and throw their vote in the tune of 90 to 80% behind a party that really doesn't deliver on the checks that they write, right? I mean, the Democrat Party has been bouncing checks on black people for decades, right? They've been promising things, the same things over and over and over again. They get the vote, and then we don't see them again until the next election, right? And the time to talk is over, man. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the talking. And so, but the other thing I realized is that I didn't feel that the Republican Party was really well represented in a lot of the communities, in a lot of black communities, especially. Who was there to educate people on what true conservatism looked like? What is a conservative? Because I felt that we were allowing the Democrat Party to essentially define who Republicans and who conservatives are, right? And is that who we really want to develop our brand? Is that who we really want to explain who and what we believe in? And so it's great to see people like yourself, I mean, going to parades and shaking hands and getting out there and talking to people and meeting people. And I'm really digging what you're doing on Facebook, just making a certain level of transparency that we haven't seen from a lot of representatives. I mean, we're really blessed to have a really, really good representative in Tim Miller. We disagree on some things, but we agree on far more than what we disagree on. He's a great guy, and I'm glad that he represents I guess technically he's not my representative. I wasn't that fortunate. But he's a good friend.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, he's been doing a great job, and a lot of what we're doing in our caucus is focusing on transparency in government, and that's a real big issue. And in bringing people are actually just bringing the legislature to our districts through social media, live streaming all of these important committee meetings, live streaming the video from the House floor. And it's not just about, sharing the House Information Services video feed. It's bringing it to my Facebook page so that I can engage with people while we're debating these, procedural votes. And I can mess people are saying, well, what's this vote on? I can say this vote is to a motion to suspend the rules. It needs this many votes in order to pass. And once we pass it, we're going to take up this bill. What does this one do? Well, this bill does this. And I've had live streams with, 500 or 600 people. Probably half of them are my constituents, and they really appreciate the legislature being brought to them on their phone. And so they can actively engage and participate in the legislative process, which is what representative government really is about. So I think it's been great for transparency, but it has exposed some big problems in government, which is the multi-subject omnibus bills, which is vehicle bills, and the way that some of the stuff is. We've exposed, not all votes are on the record. So when we do an important roll call vote and they ask for 15 hands and people aren't giving it, people are like, well, wait a minute, why aren't you doing this on the record? People actually want to vote against having a vote on the record. Like that, people see that on the video because you can't hide it. And they're, they get upset about it. So I think more people are engaged in this. And when I started campaigning 2 years ago, and I used to carry an omnibus bill with me, the legislators, people don't care about omnibus bills. They don't even know what one is. Well, when you carry a 6-pound bill around with you and you say, look, here's a 1,000-page bill. They had to vote on this an hour after they got it. Do you think that's fair? No, can't read it. You don't know what's in it. And so people get engaged in some of these, technical things about the legislature that they don't like. And we can make it an issue all of a sudden about transparency and honesty and accountability in government, right? You can't hold your legislator accountable for voting for an omnibus bill for, you can complain about one portion and then your legislator says, oh, well, actually I voted for this portion of the bill because that was for our district. All this other crud, it was not as important, but that's how government grows,
For sure. So I was talking to a mutual friend of ours the other day, and he mentioned something about you I didn't know. I'm sure Soder probably knows because he's into this stuff much deeper than I am. But there's a bill that you authored, or you sponsored, um, and I wanted to talk to you about that a little bit in regards to. And can we talk about it already, or is that something that we're not able to talk about quite yet?
If I authored a bill, I can talk about it. So what's the bill?
All right. So it was a bill in which to take people's mental state into consideration before sentencing.
Oh yeah. So the pre-sentencing investigation for people with traumatic brain injuries or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Yeah.
Sure. So walk me through that, man. I mean, just what made you take up this mantle? Because I think it's a mantle worth taking up. As you probably know, I have a son who is severely mentally disabled, and that's something that we've considered. I mean, he's a good kid, but he's nonverbal, so he's able to communicate via speech. And there's been plenty of stories of people with his condition, getting into altercations or something like that, and I mean, I would have to imagine that has to be taken into consideration, during the sentencing process. So, what made you take up the mantle first and foremost, and how's it going? Secondly,
Yeah, well, so at the Capitol, my first year, I remember a man walking around, a pretty rough-looking guy, leather jacket, tattoos, carrying a stop sign that he would just kind of, it was it said stop criminalizing mental illness. And we get a lot of people at the Capitol that come repeatedly for a certain cause. And I, maybe had a few words with him the first year I was up there. And then in the wintertime, he walked from, I think, up by Alexandria, all the way down to the Capitol in the wintertime as kind of a protest. And he was on the House floor, I think, talking about stuff. But then the next year I was up there, he came into my office, made an appointment with me, sat down, and he told me a story about his daughter, Cassandra Berry, who had she gave birth to her daughter, and then she had a hernia during childbirth, and she went in for an operation a couple weeks later, and she had a massive stroke during the procedure, and she had damaged part of her frontal lobe, and she had a blood clot in her leg, and they ended up amputating her leg. She's in her 20s, and because of the traumatic brain injury from the stroke, she has an issue with impulse control. So she might know she's doing something wrong. She might know that she shouldn't do it, but she can't help herself. And it's a brain issue. And when she was caught up in the criminal justice system, they couldn't take her traumatic brain injury into consideration during the trial because she was fit to stand trial, mentally competent. And then during the sentencing, that the judge couldn't take her traumatic brain injury into consideration during sentencing. So that's, while your son may be caught, determined to maybe not be mentally fit to stand trial, or some issues, prior to being convicted, there is a small group of people who may fall through the cracks, and we want the judge to have another tool to be able to take that into consideration during sentencing, to maybe send them for treatment or have a different option. It's not a get out of jail free card, but it is something the judge can use in consideration during sentencing. So I don't know how many people it impacts a year, but I know there's a lot of veterans that have traumatic brain injury that this may apply to. And so, and then the Democrats added fetal alcohol spectrum disorder to that condition. And so, it may impact quite a few people, but it may determine we need better treatment for a lot of people, as opposed to just criminalizing them and throwing them in jail. Sandra Berry spent like a year in solitary confinement, and it's really sad.
Wow. Are there other states that have adopted this type of legislation already?
I don't know the answer to that one. I do usually research what happens in other states for stuff, but basically, Tim came to my office. He told me the story. It was completely heart wrenching, and I said, and he's been trying to talk to the prison and the judge, whatever, and he didn't have enough money to do this. It's called a neuropsychological exam. He didn't have enough money to pay for it himself, and he was crying, and I said, and he was mad. I mean, I could tell he was broken inside. And I said, gosh, if I was you, I would be so mad. And he just looked at me and said, he was up here for a year, just mad at everybody. And then somebody told him to, nobody's going to work with you if you're mad. And I just said, you know what? You should be mad. And where's the bill that they wrote for you? And he said, no, nobody's written a bill. And I said, well, get upstairs and meet with the revisor and sit down with them, and let's write the bill that you want to do to change the law. And so he went up there, sat down with the revisor, told him what he wanted. They went back and forth with some different options, and he wrote the bill. And I put my name on it. I carried it. But this is a really important bill. It was grassroots. It was written, by people that were impacted by this. The Minnesota Brain Injury Alliance had it as like their top priority to get through this year. And we've got a Senate sponsor, Senator Ingebretson, and it's a great piece of legislation. And when you're in the minority, as a Republican, I can't work on expanding gun rights. I can't work on a bunch of really good conservative bills that I've written. So you work on issues that are bipartisan, and this was a great piece of legislation that had, I think, like 23 or 24 House sponsors. Senate can only have 5 authors, so that was packed, full right away. We had the chairs of Judiciary, chairs of the criminal justice, committees and such signed on in support. So it was a good bill.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I wasn't aware of it, and of course Tim was telling me about it, and I it was a special interest to me, having a child that could possibly be affected by that. I always pray that he wouldn't be, and you always hope that that would never happen to you. But man, and I've had enough in life happen that I know that it could always be me. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
bad things happen to good people sometimes. You know, so that's fantastic. You took that mantle up. I just had something come across. So, what's up with the Senate? Is has in a what is it, a special? Let's see here, that the Senate outs Governor Walz's labor commissioner of labor and industry.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
that happened today.
yeah, that's okay. So didn't he have a commissioner of labor and industry before?
Yeah, he did. Well, I mean, let me back up. So he appointed a commissioner of labor, and uh, all I know is that today the Senate, after an investigation, determined that the person wasn't in the right spot, and voted by a simple majority to unappoint that commissioner.
Oh, so she was already appointed and working in that, and
Yeah,
they unappointed her.
yeah, yeah.
Wow,
I didn't know they had the ability to do that.
I
So my
didn't
suggestion,
either.
my suggestion was that they stay in session and they start axing a commissioner every 4 days until the governor gives up his emergency powers. That would have been, but they've had issues with this commissioner. I know since like February, and they've wanted to get rid of her, so they did that today.
Wow, wow. I'm super frustrated because I saw that the governor renewed his emergency powers. I believe it was today, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Um, so where's the lawsuit at? I haven't heard anything recently.
Unfortunately, I get asked, 20 times a day, what's the status on the lawsuit? We had our hearing on July, I think it was July 16th.
Sure,
And, typically, I mean, the judge could rule right from the bench that day, or you'll hear within a few days, maybe 7 to 10 days at most. Legally, the judge has 90 days to rule.
sure.
And it's unfortunately, he's taking his sweet time in delivering a sentence, not sentence, delivering a verdict.
Sure.
The ruling, and it's unlike the legislature where if they drag their feet, you can just start beating up on them. We can't do that with the judge, so we're hoping that the judge will make the correct decision and give us a ruling soon. I mean, it's important that it's impacting a lot of people every day, and he knows the importance, and hopefully we'll have a decision. But
So I mean,
it could be another month.
but this verdict could have national implications, could it not?
Well, I mean, it may be national news, but there's I think 11 other states that have overturned their governor's emergency powers, so it wouldn't be
But
unique.
aren't there like 13 currently that are attempting to?
I don't know how many are still attempting to, but it's a significant decision. But I don't understand what uh, if there's a lot of politics involved or something else is happening where he's getting pressure to not make a decision. I had thought that he was going to rule right before we went into special session, and
Okay,
that he would say, maybe there'd be a decision saying, I'm going to overturn the governor's emergency powers as of August 15th. So that would give the legislature, 3 or 4 days to actually come up with some new emergency powers or write some of these executive orders into law, give them a chance to fix. The legislature isn't trying to just eliminate everything. We want to work with the governor. We want to write some of these executive orders into law, and others to have a healthy debate on whether or not we should actually implement them into law. But the
right.
bottom line is the governor shouldn't have the power to write law unilaterally, and that's why we've asked the judge to restore the balance of power between the three branches of government.
Wow. It's it, I look at it and I'm often frustrated because I feel that the left is that there's two different there's two different standards, right? There's the standard that we're held to as conservatives, but there's the standard that the left is held to. Can you imagine if Trump circumvented Congress and circumvented the Senate and decided that he was going to act unilaterally and
Like stopping payroll taxes?
Like stopping payroll taxes, right?
Although
Yeah,
to
in
be
fact,
fair to him, he did just defer them for what was it, the rest of the year?
Yeah.
He didn't say you didn't have to pay them. You still have to pay them. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe Congress will come back and go, you know, this is a large chunk of money that people are going to have a tough time getting.
Unfortunately, a lot of people, if they would be able to defer their payroll taxes through the end of the year, a lot of people aren't going to have $5,000 come December, you know, when they're looking at Christmas shopping. And that's, you know, we just can't do that to people. They can't build up this enormous debt. Yeah, but you're right. I was on the House floor today. I was really tempted to start asking vulnerable Democrats, oh, excuse me, you know, Representative Brand, what do you think about the president's ability to usurp Congress and unilaterally write law and spend money? You know, you support that or not? You know, and try to get answers because that's exactly what Wallace is doing.
Can you please, if you decide to do that, can you please live stream that, please?
Yeah, I'm sure they would have been live streamed, but it's, you know, it's tough. You know, I mean, I've never been a supporter of executive orders by presidents that have, you know, back from, you know, Bush the second to, you know, Obama and everybody doing these things. It's wrong. That's how we got into the problems when Obama, by executive order, you know, implemented DACA because Congress wouldn't act. He went around Congress and then said, I'm going to do it anyways. And then President Trump decided, you know what, this should be done by Congress. So I am canceling DACA as of, I don't know what it was, like 6 months out, and said, Congress, you need to act because this is going to be canceled 6 months from now. And Congress still didn't act, you know? So, I mean, it seemed like Trump was trying to do the right thing by getting rid of an executive order that was done with overreach. It's frustrating. Yeah, but I think Congress should act, and the legislature should have that power to write law.
Man, but that's a dangerous place to be, right? I mean, it seems like the frustrating thing for me is fair is fair. And it's frustrating to me that so many people, we're willing to turn a blind eye to it as long as it's our guy that's doing it, right? And I'm not. I'm just not. I'm not that guy. Whether it's wrong is wrong, regardless of who's holding the pen, right? And so I kind of asked that question tongue in cheek because we're seeing it on both sides, but there seems to be far more anger and frustration coming out of the left when Trump does it, and oh well, you know, someone's got to protect our old and vulnerable and our kids. I mean, in our state, well, it's really the same thing. So are we going to have school in the state of Minnesota?
You mean in-person school?
Well, isn't that the only type of school there is?
Well, I mean, that's actually, I would hope we could have the decision to be made locally, you know, not a top-down mandate. I was disappointed in the governor. I mean, originally I thought the governor's executive order was saying that these are the recommendations, but ultimately the local school board can set that decision. And then after reading this really long executive order, it appeared that he said, no, this is a top-down mandate. The schools must do no, you know, they must be this or more restrictive. And now we're finding schools in small areas like where we live out here in rural Minnesota, where we have 10,000 people in the whole county, and one testing event that comes in where they, you know, test a bunch of people can shut the entire county school district down. That's really frustrating, and it's causing a lot of parents to enroll their kids in private schools or homeschool.
Right. So, anything you can do about an exemption for people who homeschool or go to private school, that we can have our property taxes reduced? Any way you can?
Uh, Representative Drazkowski had that bill. He was going to introduce that. I don't know if I should say that or not. He had it written. He was going to, boy, would that cause raise some eyebrows. But you're right. I mean, and the same thing for universities. And there's all these universities that are doing online classes, and they're still asking for $30 million to build new buildings. And there's actually a lot of universities that charge more money for online classes than in-person classes.
Wow.
Well, yeah, they got to pay for all those webcams for the teachers, which have skyrocketed. I don't know if they've gone down, but shortly after this whole pleasantness started, the the pool of cheap webcams dried up real quick.
Yeah, same with printers. I mean, everything. The supply. It was really. This has had such an interesting impact on the supply chain of so many different things. But yeah, people were talking about how they went to Office Max to buy a printer, and like everything was sold out because all these people working from home needed nice, small laser printers.
Wow. It's we're in an interesting, very interesting time.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys a question. What do you think we should be doing with all the destruction in Minneapolis? I think Walz is appealing the federal decision to um, that they said not to give him money for rebuilding Minneapolis. What do you think? What's the solution for Minneapolis moving forward?
Go ahead, Soder.
A gun in every home. You buy a gun, you get it off the top of your taxes, and you get reimbursed for it.
That's interesting. I just
amount
posted
of money per year that you earn. Like let's say you make less than 30 grand a year, whatever. You get it written off your taxes. It gets taken off. If you didn't pay anything in, you get reimbursed for it.
You get a new gun every year. A new gun every year.
Every new gun every year you can get it taken off your taxes as credit or whatever, or taken down however it works. Like if you make under a certain amount, you get it back. If you make over a certain amount, you get to take it off the top of your income.
But wait
every
a minute.
year.
Wouldn't that be a form of gun registry, though?
Oh gosh, it would be. No. You would just say, here's you. You don't include anything about what the gun is. You just go to Notary Public. Hey, this person spent X money.
Now.
Shouldn't run it through the government. Well, I just posted a picture tonight of a longtime friend who lives next to Loring Park in Minneapolis, just right outside downtown. And he was sitting outside his house, and he was shot in the head by just a stray bullet from some gunfire nearby, and it went through his cap and it basically hit the outside of his skull and went underneath his scalp and shot out the back of his scalp. So he's got this huge, like 6 or 8 inch long slice across the top of his head. I mean, quarter inch away from death. But
wow,
he said gunfire happens all the time now around Minneapolis. It's just roving mobs of people, and he's frightened. I mean, a lot of people in Minneapolis are frightened. They need to crack down on that.
Well, and no offense to you, Mr. Munson, Mr. Representative Munson. I say defund everything, defund government in general, and let's rebuild it from the ground up. Let's build a government that works for the people. First, let's start with the bureaucrats. Let's defund all of that. Let's decide, okay, what bureaucracies are actually working in our favor and what's outdated. That's my thought on it. But the truth of the matter is, the problem is you have a lot of people that are sitting around doing nothing, and they are bored, and this is a powder keg. We got to get people back to work, and that is the main thing. And we see these types of things spike in Chicago. We see them spike all over the country in the summer. Why? Because kids are out of school. Kids are, they don't have summer jobs. They're not busy. and we see crime rates go up. And I'm not trying to say that, I'm not giving anybody any excuses. I hope you know that. But what I'm saying is that we have to work together to get people back to work, back to school, get people back to a somewhat normal life, because this isn't healthy for anybody, what we're dealing with right now. So I also don't believe that the federal, I don't believe that the federal government is responsible for what Walz had allowed to happen. I hold him wholeheartedly responsible for the debacle that took place in Minneapolis. He had the ability to slow it down or to stop it, and I feel like he poured gas on it instead. So I feel like that's something that he needs to wear, and I feel like that's something that that he needs to fix. The downside to that is I feel that means there's going to be a new tax put on the rest of us, whether he's going to try to put through more gas tax or whatever. He's going to try to raise the revenue from us one way or the other. So that's the concerning part. But I don't fault the federal government for saying no. What was it, like $55 million that he asked for?
Well, he asked for like $300 million. I don't know what the official request was from to the federal government, but it's an expensive bill.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll ask you guys another question too. What do you think are the odds that that a Democrat's going to run against Governor Walz for governor? Because that he's just so tainted himself with the destruction of the state and not recoverable in a campaign.
I have a theory. I don't think he's going to run. I don't think he's going to seek re-election.
Well, but my wife and I were wondering, if he did retire, where would he move to? Because I think he's upset a lot of businesses in Minnesota. There's a lot of restaurants and went out of business or people that have suffered, and it's.
Well, that wouldn't be a problem because he wouldn't be going to those businesses, would he?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's interesting though. I don't know. Looking at his campaign for the next 2 years. That campaign is going to start in December, right after the election, and he's got a lot of baggage that he's going to try to convince Minnesotans that he was on the right side of things. And I think looking back, people are going to see this pandemic as something we overreacted, and we need to give people their freedom back so that they can put in the necessary precautions to protect their friends and neighbors and workers, employees, and people need to just move on and get back to normal.
Man, I just hope.
I, for one, hope he runs, because the campaign from a Republican or a Democrat to primary him is going to be amazing. They're going to be pulling out every single one of his quotes from every single one of his at the beginning daily press conferences.
Yeah.
Gordon, look at this. He said 70,000 people were going to be dead in a month. 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
2 were dead.
Hey, Jeremy, I was surprised you were actually able to make it. I was hoping you were able to dodge all the rocks and cows trying to today. So.
Yeah, I did it. I do have quite a few cows in my district, but yeah, I think he's going to have a tough campaign in the next election cycle. But
I just hope that we can find a true conservative. I haven't been overly impressed with the options that we've been given in the past. I think that we need a diametrically opposed individual, someone who embraces true conservatism, that's going to say, hey, this is why we believe what we believe. This is what it means to be a true fiscal conservative. This is what it means to have limited government. This is why you want less government instead of more government. This is why we want to let you make these decisions. We don't want to make these decisions for you. We trust you to be an adult. And I think that message, especially now, will resonate with people.
I think you're right, and I think we need to start teaching people the value of freedom and the value of liberty, the value of having having their choice back to where they want to send their kids, and building individual accountability. There's a huge value in that,
Right.
and you know I think as government has been making so many more decisions for people, um, and will continue to make more and more under Democrat socialism. I think people will see the value in individual choice, and that's something powerful that we need to share with people.
Well,
Yeah. Any other races you guys are watching? Excited about?
No, not really.
I was watching yours, obviously. No, I'm not. And obviously the Ilhan Omar race. I really thought there was a chance that she might be ousted, and when she wasn't, I had a hard time going to sleep last night. So um, that's that was kind of a sad experience for me. So
Well, I do agree that she's not great to have in D.C., but politically, Ilhan Omar is something great to have on the ballot in the fall, because that's what we can show Democrats, your old school DFLers, is not representative of their party, because
right.
she is kind of the unofficial spokesperson for the new DFL in Minnesota, and showing people what they have chosen as a party and propping her up, I think helps Republicans, right?
I agree with you. I mean, Ocasio Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. The one thing that I respect and like about them is the fact that we knew that many of them felt this way, right? We can even say Kamala Harris, right? We knew that was the end goal. They were just um, honest enough to put it out there, right? And to just say, this is what we want. This is the Green New Deal. And to put it out there for everyone to see. And really and truly, it wasn't about the Green New Deal as much as it was about um, give us more control of your daily lives. And the downside to that is the government takes power, but very rarely does it ever give it back to the people, right? So once we relinquish those freedoms and once we relinquish those liberties, what's the road to getting those back? And that's been the big concern for me in this whole wall situation. Okay, so you can shut a church down, you can shut a business down, a privately owned business. You can tell people they can't go to church. Well, what's it going to take next time around? How big of a situation or big of an emergency is it going to have to be? Well, it's going to be bad weather, so no one's allowed to open their businesses. No one's allowed to go to church. No one's allowed. You all have to stay in your homes because the weather's going to be really bad this weekend. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like that's
Yeah. I mean, the six most dangerous words I've heard lately are, if it saves just one life,
oh my goodness.
right? I mean, that is where we've moved the bar down to, just if we can just save one life, then it's worth complete economic destruction, or
Right.
taking away
Worth-
one's freedom.
We're stopping all the elective procedures that save lives.
Right. I mean, just even traveling to the airport, the amount of security that we're pushed through, which all the tests that they run, where they send 500 guns through metal detectors and they miss the majority of them or something. I mean, it isn't really protecting us. It isn't really doing what it was set out to do. But God forbid government decide that they're not going to have the security at airlines anymore, and then one event happens that they may not have been able to prevent in the first place. That politically, politicians can't handle that. So it just,
But the
government
problem
grows.
is, and what I've seen in throughout this whole situation, Jeremy, is it's not what it does or not what it accomplishes. It's how it makes people feel. And I'm getting so sick of hearing, oh, it makes me feel safer. Everybody knows these dang masks aren't making anybody safer. These masks, I mean, 90% of the people I see aren't wearing their mask correctly to begin with. But there's a mask mandate and everyone has to wear a mask. Is it really, are they really saving lives? No. In fact, I was reading an article earlier today that said like the gaiters and many of the cloth masks actually can make it worse because if people cough or they sneeze through those, that it actually makes the particulates smaller and therefore makes them travel further and actually is more dangerous to the people around you. So unless it's an N95 mask without ventilation holes, or at bare minimum of a surgical mask, it actually can be making the problem worse. And I'm looking at this thing. You mentioned the airport security and the science backing that. You know what? It's just an inconvenience most of the time. But if it just saves one life, but then I'm getting so sick of hearing state of Minnesota, the national news media, international news, 200 million or 20, what two is it 200 million? No, 20 million. I'm sorry, 20 million new case. Is it 20 million or 200 million new COVID cases? Soder?
What about?
I believe it's 20 million. I think it is
20 million
worldwide.
maybe.
I'm pretty sure it's 20 million new COVID cases worldwide. Well, when you look at the fact that there's nearly 8 billion people in the world today, that's a pretty small number of actually infected. And then you whittle that number down even further when you realize that there's not even I don't believe that there's any developed countries that have had death rates over much over 0.5%. I mean, so we're shutting down people's livelihoods, shutting down businesses. We're seeing a rise in violence in the streets because people have no purpose or any guidance anymore. And we're about to have an entire generation of kids out of school and probably causing. I truly believe that for a lot of kids, it's going to be irreparable. And because these kids are falling behind, a lot of them are really falling behind, all because of something that has a less than 0.5% chance of causing a death. Are you kidding me? I mean, I don't feel that the solutions that we've come up with are even close to being effective for the amount of damage that they have caused and will cause.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think that the governor and the people making the decisions on their response to COVID are surrounding themselves with only experts in health, public health policy, and not enough economists and people talking about all of the other destructive measures that that's being caused by, the shutdown is doing. Because it has this ripple effect where you destroy people's livelihoods and you end up destroying lives. Physically, depression, alcoholism, all this other stuff that sets in. And there was a study that was a multi-decade study on economics versus, I guess, deaths in society. And they found for every 1% increase in unemployment, there was an additional, I think it was like 32,000 deaths in that it would occur in that society, just as a result. So they knew that higher unemployment led to higher death rate, whether it's heart attacks, suicides, alcoholism, that kind of stuff. And it trickles back to having a health cost too.
So Jeremy, let me ask you a question, and I'm going to put you on the hot seat, and you might decide you don't want to answer this question.
Okay.
But is it a conspiracy theory, or do you believe that there is a certain segment of people in government, a certain group of people in government that seek to create a dependent class?
Well, I'm not going to say it's a conspiracy theory, but I would say that socialism, I mean, people on the left know that if you grow government to make decisions for people, it gives yourself more power and control over people's lives, and that's part of their agenda, right? To just grow government. And so I don't think it's would come as a surprise that when given an opportunity, I think government, if you look back in history, governments have grown significantly in their influence on people's lives during times of crisis. And that's when they use that opportunity to disarm people, to shift, to grow government, to influence people's lives, and to start new programs and to grow what they're doing. It's when people are scared and when people are looking for help from government, decisions from elected leaders. They'll step in and make decisions for you, and then take your decision away from you, and then really never return it.
Rahm Emanuel, Obama's chief of staff, said, "Never let a crisis go to waste." Right?
Yeah.
And that's a sick quote. I mean, it really is. It's a sick quote.
Well,
because
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say, because lives are being ruined. There's kids that are not going to be able to go to college because their parents' business that they've been building for three generations is forever gone. People who would have had other opportunities, their lives are going to be their lives are forever changed as a result of decisions that are being made unilaterally, and that's a sad event. But of course, when you have a party that's saying, well, tuition ought to be free and healthcare ought to be free, and you should get $15 an hour no matter what job you do, and oh, by the way, we should also have a universal income. So yeah, no matter what, you should make this amount of money every month. Yeah, you could see how going through a situation like we're going through right now would cause a generation to say, you know what, it sure would have been easier going through this if we had these measures in place.
Right. Well, I mean, back to talking about just this growth of government. When we have a crisis like we have now, if it isn't indeed a crisis, but I mean, certainly we have a situation where people are fearful and asking for direction from the government to suspend our constitutional protections or to allow one branch of government, the executive branch, go around Congress to write laws is frightening. It sets a bad precedent because I understand the presidency is important, but we have checks and balances in place for a reason. And if if someone who is absolutely crazy or inept runs to be president and is elected, we at least have Congress as a stopgap to prevent them from drastically pulling our country down the tubes. But if Joe Biden is elected and Kamala Harris becomes president and takes us down this dark path of socialism unilaterally, writing law, that's frightening when we have set a precedent that they can write laws without Congress. So it's in times of crisis when our Constitution is so important. And that's why we're fighting this in the courts. And in addition to the state lawsuit we got plaintiffs to file a suit last week in federal court, challenging the same points we challenged in the first one, except we added to it the mask mandate because it is against the law to wear a mask in public. It is, I think it's a gross misdemeanor, and it's, I guess don't quote me on the level of crime, but it is against the law to wear a mask in public. And then the governor has an executive order that makes it a law that you have to wear a mask in public. And in his executive order, he said disregard the existing law that prohibits it. So there's a conflict. And we asked a federal court, to make a decision because of the election. We can't ask people to go vote if it's both against the law and required by law to wear a mask. And unfortunately, we asked for fast relief, and the judge did not hear the case. So we're waiting.
Hurry up and wait.
Yep.
That's the name of the game. So, well, Jeremy, I appreciate and congratulations first and foremost for a job well done and a campaign well run to this point. I know that you still have a ways to go, but thank you for being a friend of the show. I know we've kept you for an hour at this point, but thank you so much for being here, for being with us, for joining us and keeping us up to date. Man, keep us updated. I want to know how this whole thing goes with the. As soon as you hear something, let us know. We'd like to get you back when this decision comes from the judge, because I think that even though we're talking about things that have a great deal to do with Minnesota, we've got people all over watching this. I think it's also important for them to hear what's going on here, because the issues that we're dealing with are not just regional issues. They're national, well, international issues. In fact, we were talking to a guy from Australia, and of course, my wife was like, "Man, you should see what they have going on in Australia." And he tells us off air, he's like, "Oh my God, what type of idiots do you guys have running Minnesota?" Because I was telling him about my good friends of ours whose son passed away from cancer, and they were unable to have a funeral for their son because of the executive order. And he says, "Well, we never got to that point here. There's got to be some common sense, somewhere in these things." But the frustrating part to me is that our governor will stop a family from having a funeral service for their 9-year-old that passed away from cancer. But when a grown man is shot, we can have nearly 5,000 people at a memorial service. That's sickening to me. It's absolutely sickening. And it shows it shows true injustice as far as I'm concerned. But I'm glad that we have people like you that are being a voice of reason. People like Tim Miller that are voices of reason, that are at least keeping us informed also of what's going on in our government, because that's exactly what it is. It's our government. If we don't take some ownership in it, we deserve exactly what we get. So thank you for that. But I'm going to let you get back to your family. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, guys, for those of you guys that are still with us, thank you guys for coming on and watching this special midweek edition of Out of the Darkness. Soder, thank you, man. You look like you're about to doze off any minute now. We're going to lose him if we don't hurry up and get out of here. But hey, if you are not currently subscribed to the channel, make sure you press that button, subscribe. And Jeremy, is there a way that people can get to your campaign or support you or help you in any way?
Yeah. So you can on Facebook, you can find me if you search Representative Jeremy Munson, and then you can also find my website at jeremymunson.com. Got my hat right here. You can see my hat. Yeah. Hey, reach out.
Soder, can we put that in the description in a link?
It's going to be a lot of work, but I think I could do it.
Or put it in the chat even. That's fine too. But yeah, we want to make sure people have access to that. So, but thank you guys so much. Thanks for joining. You guys have a fantastic night. Be safe. God bless. And we will see you guys on Sunday. Take care. Good night.
Night, everyone.